Okay, if you don't understand my French accent, you tell me, you wave or... So first, thank you to Sébastien and George. I stole them this morning when I saw, because Swarm and Forge are things that are moving at a fast pace, and we've been doing lots of work, and George will tell you actually the work he's been doing, and actually just been merged 2 days ago, so it's the right time to talk about it. And it wasn't planned initially, but he managed to get in. And same for Sébastien, who's been working actively on the project. So thanks for you guys. And I think you introduced yourself this morning. So like Sébastien, I used to be French, so I'm living abroad. I work for Red Hat for the last, since 2007. I used to be a customer, and now I joined the engineering team, and I'm very happy there. And we have fantastic guys, fantastic technology, and fantastic projects. So it's very exciting. We have lots of passion. I don't know if you joined Tim Burke presentation this morning about rockstars. And I think I can say a lot of the people in my team and people who are here that work for JBoss really fit in that profile, actually check most of the boxes. So it's great to be surrounded by these profiles and these people. Maybe you can talk a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for those who weren't at my talk previously. So I'm Sébastien. I'm half French and half Dutch. And I joined Red Hat 3 years ago, and I'm on the Red Hat mobile platform team. And but today I will talk about Forge and Swarm because I love to talk about other technologies, and I talk about these technologies as a passionate user. So it's really cool. And George.
So, hello everybody. My name is George. I am the project lead of the JBoss Forge project, and I work in Red Hat since for 2012. It's 3-4 years, and well, this is going to be great.
Yeah, so today the presentation will be a mix of slides and code, and also we'll have a few little questions toward the end, but I'll keep the surprise. But feel free to ask any. I don't know if we'll have enough time with 40 minutes, but if you feel like asking a question, raise your hand. So there's few sessions about microservices today, about containers, about evolution, about lots of things that, moving into that direction. But for us, it's an evolution. Microservices is something that existed. If you've seen the second session this morning with Mr. Miller, it started actually with microkernel in the 80s, really at the low end of the stack on the Linux side. But we're looking more at the higher end of the stack today, so more really at the web frameworks level, at the application level. And one of the purposes of that talk today is how we've transitioned from traditional, and we call it sometimes monolith applications, and where are we today with microservices? We're not going to spend too much time on SOA type applications, but we're focusing more on immutable infrastructure, microservices, and containers. Okay. This morning, Sébastien presented author and bookstore applications. We'll use that as a traditional applications, something you deploy as a single artifacts in an application server. And we'll take you through what it takes to actually swat my app. Yeah. So we'll take you through these steps, and we also explain you actually a little bit of the notions behind microservices, and also what are the constituents behind Swarm. What is Swarm exactly? A little bit on the characteristics of microservices. Definitely about decoupling. Independent release cycles, what do we mean by that? Is actually very often in agile groups, actually, you see more and more a fit with the microservices characteristic there, because two pizza teams will work on maybe an accounting service, another one will work on billing or OSS, BSS, and these things actually have a different release cycles. And very often there is actually a release train that's blocked because in the monolithic world, because these things have to wait or they have dependencies. But microservices allow you to break that. It's not about the amount of line of code. It's more about the functionality, functionality that's encapsulated, that do one thing and do it well. And it's something, as I mentioned before, that has been existing for a long time. I don't know if you've done some credit checking when you write applications. There is Dun & Bradstreet. There is a lot of credit checking providers. They used to do that. I remember when I was doing an e-commerce app in 2000s, you could access them through XML RPC or web services already. So that's a microservice. You could sell also the what-if scenario that you have running on the DLL. You can export it to Schwab and other brokers through web protocols. So that's the notion of web services not tied to a technology, it's to a language, but it's definitely something that is self-contained and that executes one function. It's not about the amount of code you have behind it. And scale independently, of course. So again, about size, it's a lot of people say, okay, it shouldn't be longer than 100 lines of code. And that's I'm not going to use the word, but that's a BS, basically. So you'll see here, actually, in some of the microservices we'll be showing later is actually very small, but doesn't mean that it has to stay that way. Sometimes you have lots of functionality. Sometimes you bring lots of dependencies, other libraries, okay? So it doesn't mean microservice means micro size. Containers are becoming very popular. We've done, and we have lots of documentation online. We have done some microservices architecture based on EAP6. So primarily deploying using containers as a deployment mechanism to deploy those kind of capabilities. Today we'll show you actually that not only you can run with the de facto container solution today, Docker, but also you can run it without Docker. Swarm actually is a perfect fit for that, and Swarm actually encapsulates things like, and we'll show you in the demo, capabilities that, like typical like SSO, IDM. It's not just providing an app. It could be backend services, okay? So we'll take you through that. So not everyone wants to use Node.js either, so it does, and the reason is there's a lot of investments in Java EE. So today is actually a great window of opportunities for a number of companies that want to modernize their Java EE applications. So, and again, if I take the first slides, what is the journey to take your existing EE applications to actually move them to a modern infrastructure so we'll take through the notion of decompositions and also run them into single executable jars. So that's one of the advantage of WildFly Swarm here. So stripping down EAP WildFly is quite common. So very often you see applications, and I don't know, many of you probably, if you write an app, you'll probably just need JPA, JaxIce, and sometimes JSF, of course, for presentations. But those sets of capabilities are, not the entire EE stack. So you really want to have the ability to run in a higher density environment, especially when you run on clouds or different environments. You need to actually deploy just what you need. Okay. Good. So we've seen actually a evolution around the deployment mechanism. So we want to run our application not just as a monolith application. We want to be able to decompose them. We talk about different release cycles. We talk also about different deployment model, sometimes on Docker, maybe on OpenStack, on OpenShift. But from a developer perspective, you shouldn't be affected with that, okay? So Swarm allow you also to deploy artifacts in any environment you think of. You can actually deploy them whether as a WAR, you can still deploy on your Java EE, co-located with other services, or you can run them separately in a Docker instance or on OpenShift or anywhere else and invoke them. So that's one of the constituents that we've been looking into. That's a slide that Mark Little presented in 2010. I don't know if you remember, if you look at the follow-up our keynote at Red Hat Summit. And at that time, in 2010, is when we actually re-architected AS5 and AS6 to AS7. And one of the bigger change was around the microservice modular service container, especially around the dependency resolution mechanism, but also the modularity. So we started already to do that work, with, yes?
So you are saying that I can use enterprise Java beans to write my own processes?
Yes, so you can actually just have EGB as a dependency, and you just package that and run it as an executable jar.
I know that there is some presumption that microservices should be not related to each other. I mean, like GVM.
So so you're talking about the interaction. How do you have inter-process communications or inter-microservices? Yeah.
That was the reason why I should use why I should prepare application containers.
Yeah. So we preserve that level of isolation. So actually, WildFly Swarm is a subset of. We keep the WildFly core, and we bring those dependencies, and we wire those dependencies on demand. And you'll see in the demo, actually, we call them fractions, actually. So you bring those capabilities that you need. You don't need to bring. So we've done that work, actually, what you just say. We actually started to have that demand. We wanted, actually, with the evolution of, we're not just deploying on servers. We're deploying on different environments. And with the cloud, with the OpenShift, we had to rethink our footprint. We had to change the way we assemble all those capabilities and give choice to developers to bring what they need. Okay. So, WildFly Swarm, we call it also just enough app server, as you mentioned. Maybe you just need. I remember when I was a customer, we used to do end-of-day processing for all our bookings or all our trades. And for each of them, we actually had a kind of a worker-farmer situation. And we will spin an instance with, we just need messaging and JPA, basically. So we get orders, and we book them, and we diagrate on database. We were starting a full WebLogic server every time. Here, you don't need that anymore. Now we're talking about few tens of megabytes versus 1.5 gigabytes every time, okay? So when you look at, especially when you do end-of-day processing in a trading environment, it's a huge amount of you're churning lots of data. And when you look at how many instances you want to spin, it's the difference between a few megabytes and a gigabyte is, you'll see it quickly. It can change from hours, and one data center cost, you can reduce that by a fraction of tenfold at least. So we use a lot of the existing WildFly and EAP in terms of self-contained services without wrapping it all in Docker. We also have, as I mentioned earlier, that's something we've done in 2009 with AS7, so we've re-architected to make it possible. As Sébastien mentioned this morning, we follow the principle of convention over configurations. We'll see actually later how we bring those dependencies in pom.xml through Maven. And again, we're trying to lower the barrier of entry. So how do you want to be productive? If you want to create a microservices, it shouldn't be more effort. Actually, it's a very simple exercise. It's not just Java EE also. So how do you cluster those services? So we bring also other works, other contributions from Netflix OSS, so like Ribbon, Asterix, and also Logstash. So how do you monitor all those services together? Other aspect where it could be useful, building EE application with limited capabilities. I gave the example where you just need messaging and JPA, or JaxIS and JPA, or JSF. You need also a number of mechanism like class loading handling. Like we brought the notions that are close to HDI in AS7. So, class loading, isolation, modularity, etc. I'm not going to go into the flat path discussion, but I'll leave that for later. But basically, the goals are definitely around multi-tenancy and higher density and shared services. So that's one of the foundation of the work we've done. Again, as a representation, so WildFly, when you create your jar, you bring only what you need, as opposed to in a normal container, where if you just need JaxIS, you still bring a number of unused parts, even if they're not wired at runtime, because with since IS7, we do those resolutions at runtime, but they're still there. So by default, we provide a main, but you can override it. So I'll show you a simple example. And you don't have to touch the standalone XML, although some people have requested it, and I think that's something we can do. So how does it work? So typically, when you do a JaxIS resource, it's a very simple construct that's in a normal E6 container. That's with WildFly Swarm. Okay, same person. So spot the difference. So here there's actually no difference. With Swarm, you actually don't change your code. As what I mentioned before, we've made sure that actually the code you've already wrote, you want to decompose that application and modernize it. We don't want you to touch that code. So those changes will revolve mostly around Maven. So Maven will bring a new plugin, so it's just with a package, a goal. So you can build as a war the jar. We also bring the fractions. So before you add the JPA dependency, you just have to call WildFly, bring the dependency or WildFly Swarm. So we named them fractions, so you bring those capabilities that you had on WildFly and other project like OSS, Netflix OSS, you bring them. You can also bring a full server, which we'll show you. Actually, I need to accelerate, but you can bring SSO IDM server as a fraction, as a capabilities. And Sébastien will demonstrate that. Fractions are WildFly subsystem. Everyone knows WildFly. I've been talking about WildFly, I assume everyone. So it's our app server. So all these subsystems are brought as fractions. So they're defined as a module for jars, and they're defined. And they also bring all the transitive dependencies. So it's much cleaner for the developer. So if you bring a JaxIS CDI, then it'll bring, of course, JaxIS, and same for the rest. So that's a list of the current, and I think it's growing, so it's probably even bigger now. But it's not just about the typical E subsystem and you find in WildFly, but it's non-WildFly also around. Just as I said before, the Netflix OSS contribution, but also reactive Java and reactive Netty. So Netty is a project also we've been contributing heavily with Trustin and Norman. I mentioned you can also override your main. So by default, when you build a Swarm application, it will bootstrap through a main. 99% of the case, that's enough for you, but you can also overwrite it. So bring other capabilities, maybe your own fractions, That's an example. For example, I think that's something you've done to secure and to protect a REST endpoint here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you can talk about this one.
Oh, yeah, that was just, I was showing how in 6 lines of code you can deploy your microservice with Swarm and secure it. So basically we start a new container, we say we want to have JeAS. We add our REST class that I don't show here. And then we say we deploy it and we secure it and we protect this path. With the get method, you have to get the whole admin. Container start, okay, you just double click, it will deploy this microservice and it will be protected.
Okay.
That's just a small example.
Oops.
And that's perfect.
That's perfect timing.
It's perfect timing.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah. Perfect timing.
It was for me actually to stop talking. But so I'm going to hand over to for the code because we actually don't have much time. But I think the bigger value is actually when you see it in action. So I'll
So George, we have 18 minutes to build an old school app. From that, we will extract a microservice, we will swarmify it, and we will secure it. Okay. Do you think we can do it? Okay. Let me grab my cheat sheet. Okay. Of course, we will be using Forge. And then let's start by creating a bookstore app. For those who were here this morning, it's a pretty simple app. You have a book, you have an author, and you have also an offer class, so to provide special offers. To do that, we just run a script, a Forge script, that will just create the whole app for us. Because it's not really in the scope of Swarm, so but it's just to show you how nice Forge is. And by the way, at the end of the talk, we will treat a gist containing all the scripts, so tonight you can play with it. So here it's creating the app for us. Okay, here it is. Classic Java EE application. We can deploy it. It has even a UI. It has been scaffolded. So let's deploy that to the classic way to a WildFly server that is running. So it's deployed. Okay, let's just take a quick look at the app. Bookstore, awesome. We got authors, books, and we create offers.
It took you 40 minutes to do that this morning.
Yeah, but I didn't have the script and had to explain each step. So that's it. We have our app, classic app. Now is the thing. We have the offer. We want to extract that as a microservice because other applications need to consume that. And we want to be able to extract that as a microservice. Yeah. And since offer is quite simple, it's maybe you can show it. We just have two fields, description and a name. Let's start from scratch. Let's create the microservice from scratch.
So yeah, we're moving away from a traditional monolith app to actually start decomposing it. Yeah.
So with Forge, creating a new project is easy as project new. We call it offer. Awesome. And first thing we will do is add the Swarm add-on. That will mean we're telling Forge that we want to use Swarm. So the first change that it will do is change our pom.xml to add the Swarm plugin. And Forge will be listening to any changes that we are making to the code. And what we're going to do now is add a new entity. Yeah. So
you see the added fraction automatically.
Yeah.
It detected actually the E APIs and created fractions for it. Okay.
So let's add a new entity, and we call it offer. Okay, here we go. And here you can see that the Swarm fraction JPA has been installed. So we have nothing. Maybe you can show the POM just to show that the fraction has been added on the fly. So you don't have to care about that. The Forge plugin do that for you. Do we have, need to add some fields to our offer class? So a name and a description. Okay, here we are. Now we have to generate the REST endpoint for this offer. So that's just one command as REST generate endpoint from entity, and here we point to our offer class. So, and here we go. We got our JeAS endpoint. Since web apps will be consuming it, we have to add course support. But I'm sure Forge has something for that. Yeah. Yeah? Cool.
Use the GraphQL 2 course. Here it is. Press cross origin.
Okay.
So we can just accept the defaults, finish. So Forge will create a JeAS filter.
And we are done with our microservice. And we can build, yeah, we can run it. Build the jar first. So here,
let's go to offer. And directory.
so this will build a jar and will execute the jar. The WildFly jar.
And the WildFly Swarm plugin has been added when you did the WildFly setup.
Okay. But at any time, if you do a Maven clean install, it will create a jar for you, but it will also create a classic war file. So if you still want to deploy that in your WildFly server, you can also use the war artifact. But here we are running the jar. It's like we could double-click the jar on Windows, no? I think so. Okay, let's take a look if our microservice is deployed.
Yeah, there it is. It's an empty response.
It's an empty response since we didn't have any
Data on it?
data. Oh yeah, and you prepared a small...
Yeah, I have prepared a small script.
A small SQL script just to create some offers, so we have some content.
Yeah.
So this one, and you just have to run it again. So maybe you can show with Java jar or
Okay, run it.
just to show the difference. So here is, you can see that he's making the war file, but under the hood he's also made the jar file. So if you go in the target, we can see, if maybe you can increase a bit the fonts. Control Shift plus. Yeah. So we got our offer swarm jar, and we can just execute that as a jar. So it's just a Java jar target jar.
Of course, we can run many of them. We can do pass the port offset, like in WildFly. We can also run them with Netflix ribbon in a clustered environment. We don't have time to demonstrate that.
Yeah.
But,
So if we refresh, we should have a list of, look, okay, that's been injected by the SQL script. So our microservice is running.
What if we change our...
Now we have to change our old app so that instead of consuming his own service, it will take the offers from the microservice.
Gee, it looks hard.
It's really hard. So I'm not sure we're going to do it. Okay. So that's an Angular app that has been scaffolded, and here you could see before it was just
local.
calling his relative path because it was in the same war. Yeah. Now we say, okay, you have to take the offers from this path, the microservice that we just deployed. Yeah. So if we deploy that again, so here we do an old school redeploy. Okay. And let's make sure. And if we go to the offers, here we have the offers. So we have decoupled our app. We could do the same with Boost, with anything. We could create all mini microservices. There it is. Wow. The XXX offer. I don't want to know what it is.
So I remember someone asked you this morning if we could secure that.
If
you
we
do
can
that?
secure that, let me think. Should we do that? Yeah. And we are going to secure that on a cool way by using Keycloak. So for those who don't...
As a swarm.
As a swarm. So just a few words for those who don't know what Keycloak is. Keycloak is a security server, authentication server, that you can delegate all your security to that. It deserves a whole presentation. We don't have time to talk about that. But anyway, you should check that out. Swarm has support for Keycloak in two ways. It has a fraction called Keycloak server, and you just create an empty project, and you just add the Keycloak server fraction, and then it creates a jar containing a full Keycloak server. So we got one here running already, and what we are going to do is to update our microservice. So, and we are going to tell them you will be secured by Keycloak. So first step is to add the fraction Keycloak. So we have a command. If anytime you have to add a fraction manually, we have a command here. It lists all the existing fractions. Here we get Keycloak. We just click that. Okay. Now we have two more steps before it's totally secure. The first one, we have to provide a web.xml that contains security constraints, and that specify that the login method to be used will be Keycloak. Since we are running a bit short of time, we have that prepared for you, but as you can see, nothing really exciting. So we just copy-paste that here. Maybe you can open it again so we can see. So basically what we say here is that it's a security constraint. We say we want to protect this URL, and only users with the role user can access it. And that's the other important part. We say the login method will be Keycloak. The second step is to provide a descriptor file, a JSON file, that tells our microservice where the Keycloak server is running, what the public key is, all kind of information. Again, it's not the scope of this demo, so we prepared that for you, but as you can see, nothing really exciting there. Just it's pointing to our Keycloak server, which is running as a Swarm app, I recall you. And that's all we have to do. I think you can build the app again. Yeah, this one. Yeah.
So we have the Keycloak server is running right here in this screen. Just
Okay. And if we go back to here, and if we refresh the page, and do we have a demo effect? Fine. It's good we have 5 minutes. Should be okay. Where have you put the keycloak.json? It's okay.
It's over here. Oh, webinf, right?
Webinf, yeah?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Could have created web XML to Forge, then it will be in the correct place as I just pasted.
Yeah. But it's so easy to just redeploy. Up. Here we go. Okay, we're almost there. And normally now, if we will refresh the page, it will say that we are not allowed No, it's not. Unauthorized. So we got it. Our microservice is secured. You can only talk with this microservice if you're authenticated on your for the Angular app. So now, if we go back to the Angular app and we ask for the offers, it will probably not work. Yeah. I hope so. But we just see it was responsive. So it's not working. If we open the console, we will see it's unauthorized. So that's also out of scope of this demo. Now you have to enable Keycloak on the Angular side. And that's...
So who could do that?
Who could do that? I can propose something. We will treat at the end the scripts to create these apps. And
at your session tomorrow, maybe you can...
And tomorrow there's a JeAS Forge lab. And there, if someone comes there and provides us the solution to enable Keycloak integration in Angular app, he will get a Raspberry 2, a really cool one. And I swear you, it's really easy. If you're a bit curious, if you check the documentation, the Keycloak examples, you look for Angular, you should be able to do that. So if someone tomorrow comes with his laptop and says, hey, I managed to secure that, well, you will get that. That's the end of the demo. I think we are still 1 minute or two left for any questions. 2 minutes left for questions.
I just summarize also. So that's the slides will be available. So also, in addition to the gist, you'll have information. That's what we just did to move from monolith to application to a full microservice. And if you really want to go deeper dive, if you're interested to look at other fractions like Netflix OSS projects to have fully clustered environment, then you look at that Booker demo. So that's a really full-blown demo, scalable, etc. Okay. So as a conclusions, of course, it's a fast iteration. We had Alpha 8 today. I think it's been released 2 days ago. You're very welcome to bring also all your ideas. You can communicate with us. WildFly is a community, as Tim Berg this morning said. The team is better than the individual, so you're welcome to contribute through either Twitter, WildFly Swarm IRC, or look at the code and also share your ideas with us. Okay, and if you want to participate to the little things we have, you can look at the gist, which is
everyone can play except Abstract J. You didn't hear me.
Yeah.
So here's the gist that I put in GitHub. These are all the scripts that were used in this presentation.
Maybe you can tweet it with DevConf hashtag, so people can find it back. If they,
I'll tweet it.
Yeah? So you will tweet it right after.
Yeah.
So this is usable also for existing Forge projects, Forge-based projects, so you can, I'm talking about windup, of course. So we could put windup as a dependency, use Swarm, and it would load windup, download all the hundreds of megabytes, and run windup as a service.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
great.
Yep.
That's what we are looking for.
Awesome.
Good.
Actually, your project doesn't have to be Forge enabled. Any project, any Java EE project can use WildFly Swarm. So
We demonstrated the Forge for the amazing productivity you get out of it. And you have all the add-ons. It brings all the fractions automatically. Yeah.
I'm asking whether having a Forge project wouldn't break it.
oh no, no, definitely not.
You'll be at the...
just as if you install WildFly 10 and deploy your application, you will be using the same jars that is used in the WildFly distribution are also used in the WildFly Swarm. If you look at the jar that is generated with Swarm, you will see the WildFly jars inside of it. So it's like pick the application server and put inside the jar with all the modules that you need, and together with your application.
So the services of the
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.